Good evening. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Fort Wayne Community School Board of School Trustees meeting. We are pleased to have those of you who took the time to join us here tonight, and welcome to anybody who may be watching on the educational channel at home. We ask those of you who are here with us to rise with us as we start the meeting with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Looks like we're all here tonight. So, Steve, would you start by introducing yourself?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Steve Corona from the 5th District.
Good evening. I'm Glenna Yale from the 2nd District.
And I'm Becky Hill from the 3rd District.
Julie Hollingsworth, District 1.
Ann Duff, District at Large.
Jordan Lebemoff, the 4th District.
My name's Mark Giacquina. I'm an at-large member of the school board. I'm pleased to introduce also Barb Trout, who is the clerk to the board. She's seated at my far left, and next to Barb is our superintendent, Dr. Wendy Robinson. And good evening, Dr. Robinson and Barb. Thank you for the work you do getting us prepared for our meetings. We begin with something that Krista and Ms. Hall put together each year for us. So as the lights go down, we're going to show you what transpired on the first day of school. What you won't see in this video is something many of us felt, and that was, believe it or not, 87-degree temperatures in the upstairs of our of those buildings that are not yet air conditioned, and it was horrible. And yet, despite all that, there were smiling faces, but soggy clothes. So we could, Melanie, welcome. We're about to show the back-to-school video. Thanks for the work you did with Krista to get this ready. And Krista, we're ready when you are.
Phase 1 included 10 major renovations, the largest of which was Snyder High School. We also had 2 middle schools and 7 elementaries that were fully renovated. That's new air conditioning, new heating systems, full classroom renovations from ceilings to floors to paint on the walls. Just making it a better learning environment overall for our students. We came in about $2 million under budget. That was $2 million that we did not borrow, that actually decreased what we borrowed as far as tax rates. Phase 2 was actually passed with a 72% majority in May, which was great. We thank our community for supporting us. That includes another 10 renovations, the flagship of which will be Northrop High School, another 2 middle schools, and another 7 elementary schools will receive full renovations. And again, that's air conditioning, new heating systems, new windows, new classroom finishes, and those sorts of upgrades. With the 10 renovations and those 6 additional schools, we will be able to say that our district is now fully air conditioned. All 51 school buildings will now be fully air conditioned. Typically, our projects will take about 2 summers with some construction during the school year in between. So you're looking at about an 18-month to 2-year construction duration from the time we start to the time we finish. Northrop, being a high school, being a lot more intensive, will probably take 3 full years to complete construction.
I think there's so much pride on the south end of town to make sure that Southside stays an important aspect of the Southside community. I know we have one group here, the 46807 group, that really supports us. They host events here. So in the future, I think since the city sees that this is an important aspect, and any time you have anything required for growth on the south end of town, Southside and Wayne High School will have to be part of it because they are the anchors in this community. The summer is not totally off. We are here every day working to making sure that we have our kids in the right places. You never want to get halfway through a school year and realize the kid is taking the wrong classes because all of that affects your graduation. So from graduation to the beginning of the first day of school, it's pretty intense for our counselors and myself and our assistant principal of curriculum, April Castater, to make sure that we have our schedule in place, there's no glitches, and that we are on track to get kids the best opportunity to graduate in a timely manner. For me, it's just something I'm passionate about, helping students, making sure that they're on the right track. I've had many mentors in my life to push me in the direction, so it's my time to pay it forward. So, you know, I see so many good things happen every day in this building. So when the bad things do occur and I have to deal with those, you know, it's just a blip on the radar. But 95% of my day and my school year is spent with kids who want to do better.
Well, I think what people have to begin to know about the Faith Center is that we are here in support of students' families. But not only that, but in support of schools in how they support students and families. This center actually houses some of the departments that were kind of scattered within the Fort Wayne Community Schools. And so bringing them into one location where parents don't have to go to GRIO for Student Family Support Service, go somewhere else to receive services from our community programs, somewhere else for health services. They are able to come here, enroll their child, receive those services, receive referrals to other agencies outside of us that may be in support of what we do, and that keeps parents from running all over the place trying to get those services done. It's a one-stop shop. We want to make sure that our students and families are having support around the challenges that they may face. And so as we do that, we actually see ourselves lifting the family, lifting the student, not only just as we talk about supports, but what happens academically. And so that has an impact on the entire community just because we'll have students better prepared as they leave us. But the other piece for the center itself is that it provides a place where we can find synergy within the community and how we bring resources to the center, how we then refer students to resources that are in the community. So it really gives a boost to all of us and how we help students to become better academically prepared.
We got an email on Sunday saying, from Liz saying that there were going to be lilies handed out at lunch. And so we've had, in the 8 years that New Tech's been open, we've had 3 Lilly Grant winners, endowment winners. So I thought it was that. And as I was walking into the room, I noticed that there was cameras there, and then I feel a hand on my shoulder. And this hand doesn't leave my shoulder, and all of a sudden I turn, and it's Wendy, and she said, "Do you know why I'm here?" And at that point, I'm not normally speechless, but I seriously had to catch my wind and catch my breath. Teaching gives all of us the opportunity to be a lawyer, to be a doctor if I want to one day, to be an architect, to be an artist, to be a TV producer, to be a broadcaster, which I kind of wanted to be when I set off after my senior year at Northside. I can do all those things on a daily basis. Teachers need a pat on the back. It doesn't have to be a state teacher of the year. It doesn't have to be a Fort Wayne teacher of the year. They just need a pat on the back, because it doesn't take much more motivation than that. Because when you walk in and you see those faces every day, you are motivated to do something big and creative and sometimes outlandish. And that's the part that I look forward to every day.
Thank you. Any reflections from board members on schools they may have visited on the back-to-school day?
I visited 3 schools, Lindley, Miami, and Wayne High School, and it was interesting to see, they were very noisy at the middle school, and most students did not know where they were going, but in a very orderly manner, they were directed toward which room and hallway to find themselves. At Lindley, it was those kindergartners with fear in their eyes, not knowing what the day was going to be like, but mom or dad was there with them and assuring them. I didn't see any this year children with clutching or grasping parents. I'm not staying here. Take me home. Look. But it was it's an exciting day. The buildings all looked spotless, and people were ready to go.
I didn't visit any schools this year, but I must say that the newly paved car rider line, I don't know if they call it that in high school, it doesn't sound very cool, but newly paved car rider line is very nice, very orderly, very organized. It's ran really smoothly, especially compared to last year, so I'm happy with that.
I was at South. My youngest is now a freshman at Southside. Big brother's a senior. And before they left out the back door to walk to school, little brother looks at big brother and says, Sebastian, I forget, what's the book bag rule? And big brother, of course, didn't remember what the book bag rule was and just said, well, just behave, and if somebody says something, do what they say. So I made it to school, and I just sort of floated around to watch the kids. And Steve, the thing that I always get a take back away from this is you've got the seniors that know where they're going. And you've got all the freshmen, and all the freshmen, you can tell who the freshmen are because they have their schedules in front of them. Okay, they no longer have their iPads, but they have those schedules in front of them, walking and maneuvering the hallways. So it was a good time for me because I got to see a little bit of each child.
And as I mentioned, I went to, Lincoln and Shawnee. Interesting, they're across the street from one another. One is not air conditioned and the other is. And, it's interesting because the day we started, it was not particularly warm, but the heat from the week before was still lingering in, especially in the upstairs. You could walk up the stairs and actually feel it getting warmer as you got to the top of the stairwell. And I asked Kathy, I'll have to get back with you. It just seems to me some of these schools are 4 years away from being air conditioned. I don't know if there's a way to vent those ceilings, those roofs, with attic fans or something like that. I do know I found out that there is, I haven't told you this yet, but there's a portable air conditioning mechanism that you can put in the hallways, and it'll actually condition the air in place, which would at least maybe give the teachers and the students an opportunity to cool down out in the hallways. So, but I'll tell you a little bit about that because in this day and age, there has to be a way. And the other point I want to make is that the difference over in Lincoln, where it was air conditioned, it was just really fascinating to go from one to the other and to see the impact it makes. Especially, like I said, I'd pat a teacher on the back and they were just, they were wet from the perspiration of being in that environment all day. So fortunately, it's cooled down a little bit, and I'm assuming the buildings have now cooled down, but it will get warm again. We have a history of 90-degree weather into September. As those of you who have been on the board know, and it can be quite unbearable. So teachers out there, we really do know what you're going through, and help is on the way, but if we can get anything done before then, we're trying, right? So, okay, that's it. Let's move on with our agenda, and thanks for that great video. And we appreciate you kind of mixing it up. The preparation for the year is always interesting, so thank you for that. Item 4 is the consent agenda. A is the approval of the minutes from our August 8th meeting. B are the vouchers and the payroll approval, and we get those online. We received them last week. Thank you very much for that. So the board members have had an opportunity to review those. And then finally, C is the personnel report, which actually tonight is pretty voluminous. I don't know if, Dr. Robinson, you have anyone in particular whose name you'd want to call out or not, but
Not at this time.
okay. So with that having been said, we'll entertain a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So carried. Just curious, how are we doing on on our hiring? Are we short of, as the year gets underway?
We are. We have all of our classrooms covered. We're in the process now. Last week, we worked with FWA, and there was some shifting of teachers where enrollments never come in where you think they're supposed to come in because kids move. But we have a young gentleman, Cody, who is working on recruiting, and we're not as bad as we have been because there's someone dedicated. Our classified ranks are just as scarce, really, almost. We can find substitute teachers, but finding classified people is also the issue. So we're doing pretty good, not at full staff, but it gets better every day. So I can give you exact numbers. I don't have them in my head.
Let's move on to new business. The first is the recommendation for the board to approve some changes in the acceptance of transfer students. This is a policy the board's required, I think all districts required to have a transfer policy in place. And Julie, you made some changes that you sent around, which we appreciate.
Well, Becky.
Did Becky make the
English teacher, Becky. Yeah. But I have to admit that the way it was originally written, I didn't really understand it.
I'm glad to hear you say that, because I didn't either.
I thought there were all sorts of exceptions permitted by law.
Yeah.
Now I understand.
Good. Well, thank you. So, is there anybody, Dr. Robinson, you want to just summarize the policy, or is there anybody here who?
Bill's not here, but I think the gist of the changes was that concept of what is exempt and what is.
It's just that one second
yeah.
sentence in the
Yeah.
first paragraph.
Right.
We really didn't do anything other than that.
Yeah.
Still as is. The part that
And
starts,
I
the
will-
corporation will not, it was not written clearly.
Okay.
But that's about
I'll
it.
happily make the motion.
Great. Okay. Well, and I appreciate you doing that because I had, as I said in my email back, I hadn't had the time to look at it. So.
I'd second the motion.
Motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So carried. We move next to the appointment of project architects for the school improvement projects. It's been recommended that the board approve the appointment of project architects and engineers for the following school basic renewal, restoration, safety, construction projects. Viridian Architectural Design, Inc. for Glenwood, and Barton Co. Valama Architects and Engineers for St. Joe Central. And the information we received is that if the project's going to cost over $100,000, well, any project over $100,000, we have to use a registered architect. So hooray for their lobbyist who did a nice job there, or a professional engineer for developing plans and specs. Project architects, engineers need to be appointed now to allow sufficient time for planning and bidding of the project to ensure completion during the summer of 2018. The contract fee for Viridian is $300, and for Barton Co. is $497.5. Are they Fort Wayne outfits? Yeah, both from Fort Wayne. And both have been doing work for us on projects that have been completed, so they know our buildings. Right. So, any questions or comments, or can we move for passage?
Move approval, Mr. President.
Second.
Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? So carried. The next item is to buy 3420 Bar Street. The current school site is significantly below the state minimum acreage, which is 28 acres. With this purchase, we're still short 3.9 acres. Purchase of property in this block will allow flexibility for the school to expand parking or develop additional grass physical education and athletic practice areas. It will be funded by the CPF allocation for land acquisition. And as you can see from the map, this is, turn it to the other side. Let's see, is it the?
I assume it's a vacant lot?
No, it's a house on it.
Oh, there is a house.
It's on the right-hand side of the,
It's east of Clinton.
Yeah,
In the middle.
I'm still looking for it. Let's see. Oh, Bar. It's it's got the crosshatches on it. Is it the last house standing over there?
No.
No, still got more.
Two
Well,
more lots?
3405 and 3406 are still there. And the way this I mean, there's not a lot of leeway. We purchased based on appraisals. They both came back the same amount, so it's a pretty good deal. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
One question.
So there is a house, so there's demo. Is that included? I mean, that's the selling price, I understand, but what's the cost of the demo? to demo?
More than what we purchased the house.
That was not the answer I wanted.
Yeah, we have to go through and do all the full environmental study and do the abatement and then demolish the home. So we haven't got bids on that yet. We do that after we secure the house.
Darren, any possibility of getting a walkway over Clinton Street? We've looked at that a long time ago, actually, long before I was on the board. My dad and I started working with an organization in town to quietly buy some of these properties. And I know as a state route, it was always difficult to figure out how to put that walkway. But any recent review of that possibility to get our kids over Clinton Street safely?
It is still a state route, and it's much more difficult to do that with the state route than it would be with our local jurisdictions. We have had discussions just this last year with NDOT on what could be done on some crossings in that there. But we haven't gotten any further with that. The last discussion we had to be fully ADA accessible as well. So you can imagine quite the ramp system just to do that. Because it is higher because it's a state highway.
Right. Okay. Well, I just always think about that when I go out North Clinton and see the ramp out that way. It's always, okay. All right. Well, thanks, Darren. So, is there a motion and a second?
Yes.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? So carried. Finally, or not, well, almost finally, yeah. We have a recommendation that the coverage for property, commercial general liability, inland marine, foreign package, business automobile, commercial umbrella liability, law enforcement, professional liability, school leaders, errors and omissions, and boiler machinery be awarded through USI Insurance Service to two underwriting carriers for an annual premium of $1,162,235. The information we've been given is the policy will be underwritten by Cincinnati. Wright Risk Management will remain our insurance company for all other policies, and Catlin Indemnity will be the underwriter. Total premiums decreased $81,000, or about 6.5% with this renewal effective September 1. I guess the first question, Kathy, is it's great that there's a reduction, and I see Bill Neeser out in the audience. He's been with us for quite a while, and so we've got the advantages of soft markets and the pain of hard markets. Did this go out, or was the 6.5% deemed to be sufficient to?
No, Bill goes around and checks various options for us, and then he might want to explain his process, but he looks at various options available to us and helps us decide which the best one would be for us.
Okay.
So we aren't just sticking with the same ones we've always, that's not the process. The process is to go see what other opportunities that are out there. Often there are only so many, though, that will accept FWCS
And Bill, if you want to go to the
business.
mic, that'd be fine. It might be helpful. So you get a quote from, you might pull that up, I don't know. You get a quote from Cincinnati and other underwriters to see where they are in the market each year.
There are a handful of underwriters who will entertain a large urban public school district. Those every year we identify who those underwriters are, and we contact each of them and all of them and find out if they have an appetite to underwrite Fort Wayne Community Schools. The last 4 years since we made the change from Indiana Liberty Mutual to Catlin Indemnity, the Catlin Indemnity program through WRM remains the best situation for Fort Wayne community. We are finishing, as I say, our fourth policy term with Caitlin Indemnity, and we continue to generate very positive underwriting results, very positive loss ratios, and that has allowed us to negotiate for this next coming policy term reduction in premium costs and improvement in terms, which in policy terms, which is going to realize a minimum of $100,000 in savings to Fort Wayne Community Schools. Okay. So you may rest assured that the corporation is receiving both the benefit of the marketplace as well as taking full advantage of the positive results that are being generated today.
And have you ever endeavored to look at the potential for putting a self-insured program together for the district?
Yes.
And when was the last time we did that?
Well, I can tell you that it's Mark or Mr. Giacquini, Fort Wayne Community Schools, while the workers' compensation was a very obvious candidate for self-insurance, that is not the case with the other lines of coverage.
Okay.
Your bottom line premiums are substantial, but if you break it down by line of coverage, it's still to your benefit to insure those risks rather than to take them on yourself. You could find yourself in a very precarious financial position should you start to further self-insure.
And what about higher deductible? One of my clients has a $250,000 deductible, after which, they fund another $18 million, no, $20 million of insurance on top of that $250,000.
I would say that we do look at different deductible levels, but the levels that you are at presently and that you have been at, we believe are provide you with the best bang for the buck, if you will. In other words,
what are those? I don't.
Your property deductible is $50,000. Now that could be increased to $100,000, and yes, there would be further savings, but it becomes inverse to the amount of risk that you would be assuming.
Okay, all right. I'm just wanting to make sure we're looking at that each time around, because it could I mean. And do we do self-insured on the workers' comp side?
Your workers' compensation program, or your workers' compensation has been self-insured since I believe 1994.
It has been. Oh, good. Okay, I didn't even know that. So okay, good. Well, I know it was at the city, so maybe that took place about this. I don't know, but the city self-insures in that area too, due to the experience, as you say, it's such good.
They self-insure their casualty coverages. They still insure their commercial property.
Okay, all right. Hey, Bill, thanks for that.
Let me ask a question.
Yeah.
Bill, what does this say about all these wonderful safety programs that we have here at Fort Wayne Community Schools? Is this
well, I think you've heard me before say that the approach that Fort Wayne Community Schools takes to the identification and control of loss, which includes all of your new, relatively new safety measures and ongoing work in that area. The maintenance of the buildings, even given their age, all results in a better underwriting situation, which results in better cost to the corporation. So it all makes a difference, and it's all taken into consideration.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
So.
I so moved.
Thank you, Rick. Motion and second. having been heard. Bill, thanks again.
Thank you
Always
for your
good to
business.
seeing you, and thanks for your work and getting us, as you say, the biggest bang for our buck. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? So carried. That, I think, brings us to the point in our meeting where we ask for comments and discussion from board members. We begin with you, Steve. Any?
Nothing further from me this evening, thank you.
I pass also.
Okay.
I'm really at a loss. This is the first time in 8 years that I was not at the first day of school, so I feel like school hasn't started yet. So, Krista, I've got to get back into the schools really quick. But anyway, I know it's really fun, and it's a great time, and I see excited kids in the schools school buses going by in my subdivision. So yeah, I know it started, but anyway, thank you.
I wanted to share an article that I know I shared with all of you, but it just came out in July, a study, in Indiana, and Indiana was one of the 4 states that was a focus of this study because a lot of the rhetoric 4 or 5 years ago in Indiana around teachers' unions was that, well, we know teacher unions protect bad teachers, and so that's why Indiana was one of 4 states to significantly reduce the strength of teacher unions. So interestingly enough, an economist from Harvard decided to study that issue. And she has a PhD from economics at Harvard and has spent the last 3 years as a postdoctoral research fellow there. So what she found was the opposite of common knowledge, and that is that highly unionized districts actually fire more bad teachers. And the reason, and I see Mr. Kamek shaking his head, and one of the obvious reasons, is once you start to pay teachers more, then the district has more of an incentive to fire bad teachers. And so part of the study, there are 4 states that did what Indiana did in 2011, that reduced the power of teacher unions. And because there's no real national standard for student performance, what they looked at, Mr. Giaquina, was graduation rate, because that's one thing that is pretty equal over all states. And what they found is that in the states where the law was changed, graduation rates well, the first thing that happened, of course, was that teacher salaries dropped in states where unions their bargaining power was restricted. So teacher salaries dropped, and then high school graduation rates have dropped. And they found that the greater, what they call union density of teachers in a district, that higher union density causes an increase in graduation rate, and conversely, lower union density causes a decrease in high school graduation rate. So the next time somebody says, well, teacher unions, all they do is protect bad teachers, the research says otherwise.
And that seems to all fit in with our theory of have failing schools and saving, because they want to save money.
Exactly. There's a cost to just saving money.
Yeah. And that's it.
Okay. Oh.
No comments.
I've got a couple things I wanted to mention. First of all, this is the first day of school for Mara Giaquina in the Denver public school system, and she feels very, very well prepared for today, thanks to her student teaching at Fort Wayne Community Schools with Linda Schaefer at Adams. And Linda feels that Mara is ready for today. So room 204 in Columbine Elementary, and I can't wait to call her tonight to see how she did. So the other thing I wanted to discuss has to do with studies. I delivered a talk to about 100 Rotarians and then followed that up with a talk on vouchers to a smaller group at FACE. Got some really good feedback at the discussion that we had following my talk to the Fort Wayne Community School volunteers at FACE, and reflected on it quite a bit following that discussion. The talk that we gave was on the voucher program, and we've been suggesting to those in the audience that they consider it not in terms of the talking points that were made to the legislature when it was passed, but consider it anew given the changes in the program that took place since those legislators voted for it. In particular, the key talking point at the time it was passed was that the program would save money because the voucher money would leave the public school with the child and was less than the amount paid each school per student. Therefore, if they left the school and received a $2,500 voucher, $2,500 would stay in the Common School Fund. We point out to the audience that that has now changed, now that the voucher is identical to the foundation amount, and more importantly, now that pathways exist for voucher families that didn't exist before, such that this is new money. The program is now costing the taxpayers $53 million out of the Common School Fund that was not following the child. Of course, we also discussed in the talk that while the revenue leaves, the cost stays behind. And that was never presented to the legislature. That is to say, if a student leaves a district with 30,000 students, as I said to the Rotarians, we haven't figured out how to turn the thermostat down by 1/30,000th of a degree. And likewise, when Bill Neeser was here, we don't get a 1/30,000th reduction in our insurance premium. So those costs remain regardless of the revenue leaving. But more importantly, as the program becomes what I refer to as a middle-class entitlement program, going to families with incomes of about $90,000 for a family of four, it exists more and more for students who were already in the parochial schools. And I think that allows us to bridge a gap that has existed prior to this time. In other words, as long as someone could say, well, these students have a right to enjoy the same kind of quality education as their middle-class peers, and we say, yeah, except that this is going to their middle-class peers who never set foot in a public school. People are interested in hearing that new narrative, very interested in hearing it. Now, the comment that I received was, we have to be careful, and I agree with this person, Mr. Reese was there. I think it was Reese or Reeser, I can't recall, but he pointed out that it's really important that we not unnecessarily alienate members of the audience who are simply using money that's being made available to them. I mean, in other words, if you're someone who has the opportunity to apply and receive $10,000 a year for two students to attend a Catholic or Lutheran school, should we really expect them to not apply? That's really a choice that perhaps isn't fair to put on their plate, because it's there. It was the legislature that made it available based on, again, an argument that no longer is operative, because as Julie pointed out, one of the talking points she provided to me to include in the talk, Mitch Daniels always assumed that the public schools would have the first opportunity to sell that family on public education. That's no longer the case, as more and more vouchers are available to families who never once intended to put their children in public schools. So getting back to the narrative, our narrative, I think we have to, and I have to, fine-tune the talk so that we make it clear to parochial school parents, look, you're just taking advantage of a program that exists for you. You're not a bad person for doing that, but we do want you to understand that when you do it, it is now taking money out of the Common School Fund and making it that much more difficult for a public school district like Fort Wayne Community Schools to educate children who present special challenges, which are also expensive challenges. I note that in the article today by about Ian Rowland, and I will send him a note, and it'll be a note thanking him for his service, but reminding him that when he says everyone benefits from the voucher program, that simply isn't true. We do not benefit from the voucher program. So long as the vouchers and the money is leaving the public schools and going to educate middle class and upper middle class kids who are choosing a religious education, we suffer, because the Common School Fund loses those resources. And more importantly, and the statistics are starting to bear this out, Mr. Rowland, who fought hard to desegregate our public schools, is now, and I think unwittingly, supporting a program that is, in the end, resegregating our schools. So, and I know that's not what he intends, but we can gently remind him of the cold hard facts of the way this program is now, what it's morphed into. And finally, with regard to studies, and thank you for pointing out a study on the unions, because the end of our talk introduces to our listeners studies performed at and conducted at Notre Dame, University of Arkansas, the Fordham Institute, which is a pro-voucher not-for-profit, and Michigan State University. The last two are most instructive because Fordham expressed real concern over the fact that students receiving vouchers performed, their performance dropped in their voucher school environment. The MSU study is really interesting because it breaks ground. It is the first longitudinal study, which is a fancy academic term for having followed the path of individual students over an 8-year educational journey. And it found that while the students who start in the public schools are lagging behind their parochial school peers on their very first test prior to kindergarten, after 8 years in this nationwide test, the public schools had narrowed that gap over their parochial school counterparts, which was really interesting, with the with the same socioeconomic status children. So good news for public schools, and it probably ought not be surprising because the public schools have had a lot of experience and we know what we're doing. And then back to the article on Ian Rowland, what a compliment to Fort Wayne Community Schools that he pointed to a Fort Wayne Community School administrator for helping to turn around the Philip Johnson School over on the south side. He admitted that they moved from an F to a D, and he attributed that to the fact that a Fort Wayne Community School administrator had brought some of the Fort Wayne Community School expertise to bear in that learning environment. Then final comment, and this is an important one as well, there will be an ordinance introduced tomorrow at City Council by Councilman Arp to do away with the personal property tax. I have to say that this is horribly ill-advised. We ought not do tax fiscal policy piecemeal. That isn't the way it is typically done when tax matters are discussed in Indianapolis, because they have the entire picture in front of them, so that if they are going to tinker with this part of revenue producing tax strategies, they have to deal with how, if at all, that will be made up with some other tax. So it's very, very unusual in Indianapolis for anyone to hear the legislators discuss the reduction in the corporate income tax without discussing how that revenue is going to be made up, because it's their budget they're dealing with. For a local official to come to a city council meeting and simply take away the business personal property tax in Allen County would reduce our budget by $10 million with no strategy to make those dollars up in some other form of revenue producing tax. So I don't know what to say other than to urge anybody who might be listening to this to please contact your city councilman and explain to them that to reduce a tax in a vacuum without understanding its impact on our children who need the resources we're providing in an environment where charter schools and vouchers are already depleting the common school fund is truly adding a horrible insult to an injury. And without coming to us and asking us what it is what our mission is, what we're doing, what we strive to do at every meeting we attend to make sure that we're running the district with fiscal integrity and responsibility, I think is highly irresponsible. And I want to urge our parents, our backers, those who watch us, all 7 of us, and how much we care about saving and spending their dollars as if they were our own, whether it comes to our own travel, to conventions, no matter what it is. We're not these spendthrift public officials you may read about from other cities. We run this institution in accordance with the kind of Hoosier values you would expect of us. And we cannot afford another $10 million hit. We just can't afford it. Children will suffer. So please help us with that. And I and others, I'm sure, will be down to talk to them.
So this proposal that Councilman Arp would directly affect Fort Wayne Community Schools' budget by $10 million?
That was the estimate. Kathy, is that correct?
That's what I heard the estimate was also. It was published in the newspaper.
What they did is they took the total amount of personal property tax that is collected, and then they looked at every different tax rate that takes a piece of that pie, and they estimated the amount that would be lost to all the different entities, the schools, Fort Wayne, and they actually looked at Fort Wayne community individually because it's, and I didn't see what the other districts would lose, but Fort Wayne Community School, the estimate is $10 million. Now, that goes up and down based upon the exemptions that are granted, the abatements, and any new business property that is taxed. And in saying that, I want to say, I'm not passing judgment on whether personal property tax is fair or not. It maybe should go, but the time for it to go is when we have another mechanism to supplant that which goes. To just start dismantling it one at a time makes it really, really tough on us. Did anybody talk to you about this, by the way? Have you gotten any phone calls from anybody?
From City Council?
Yeah.
No. Okay. And just to put it in perspective, that's even more than what we lose in circuit breaker right now. So it would more than double what we lose in the circuit breaker and would affect all those funds that are affected by the circuit breaker. So it would be significant, including our debt service funds. So it would be a major problem.
Yeah,
Well, the city council was so tough on the mayor's office when they introduced annexation without any talk, without any conversation with their non-constituents. I'm sure that city council will be sensitive to us who are their constituents.
well, yeah,
it
I mean,
could be.
I think they just passed
be.
an additional
Did they
wheel
have-
tax, did they not? Or
They did, yeah.
because they had
Wheel tax,
needs, they had, street, and that's
Right,
fine. I mean, I didn't,
right,
but
right.
this is so. Kathy, thanks for putting that in perspective. I mean, we know about the circuit breaker loss. Most people don't. And that's our mission here. I mean, when we were at Rotary, we asked, raise your hand if you have some uncertainty with respect to the difference between charter schools and voucher schools. And I would say at least Oh, I think more
More
than
than
half.
half?
I was up there watching. It was 70 to 75% of the people raised their hand. So we sometimes take for granted, we know too much sometimes.
Well,
So
I'm sorry, but I think you could ask legislators the same question. You'd probably see half their hands go up.
It may very well be. But so this, thanks for pointing out the circuit breaker. We can put together, again, there's a real need for us to be out there in the community and explaining this stuff because they need to hear from our school board, and we're the ones who need to be out at these meetings. And again, the takeaway that I got was we need to do it in a non-threatening way, in a constructive way. We don't want to push people away, but this is serious business, and we've got to get these facts out
Yeah, I was
because
gonna
our
say, it's
kids
about
are the ones who
education.
lose.
Right.
And when will they be voting on this?
Well, if it's introduced tomorrow, it should be discussed in committee the following Tuesday. And Kathy, I would strongly suggest that you and I and perhaps some others attend that meeting and advise the clerk we'd like to be heard. I don't know if there'll be a public hearing on it, but I think we should ask that there be a public hearing. I don't know, and then if it follows the regular course of things, it will be passed the following Tuesday. Although oftentimes the committee hearing extends another Tuesday and they can hold it up even beyond that. I don't know if the statute requires a public hearing. It could not, I just don't know. But they are free to schedule a public hearing whether a statute mandates one or not, and I think we should request that there be one. All right. And then the city council meetings from 1981 to 2006 have now been digitized and are archived. You can go see them. You will laugh. Believe me, you will laugh when you watch them. I laugh when I watch them. There's a very, very young man sitting around those tables.
Should you give us any particular dates to watch?
I shouldn't invite anybody
I don't
to
want
watch,
to just
believe me.
willy-nilly, pick out a
David Long sent
meeting.
an email out that said, beware opposition research. Thanks to all of you for joining us tonight and to this great group of people up here who serve on the best collection of school board members in the state. And that will entertain a motion. Oh, Dr. Robinson, did you have anything to add? I apologize.
No, I'm still basking in the glow of school starting last week.
Yeah, okay.
Great start.
All right.
Great
Move for
start.
adjournment, Mr. Chair.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So, are there members of the public who care to come to the microphone and address the board at this time? Okay, see.